Welcome. My name is William Meindl. I go by Bill, and I am looking for a $30,000 loan for a small business I would like to open. I got married in 2012, and I asked my best friend of 20 plus years to be my best man. He was 25, living in Chicago, single, and worked full time for between $40,000 and $50,000 a year. He did not have anyone to help him plan a bachelor party, as I lived in Seattle at the time, and the other invitees were not willing to help him. He spent many hours, including nights and weekends, to put together a great bachelor party that involved go-karting, a comedy club, transportation to and from these places, as well as selecting a few bars to go to between and after. While I had a great time, I honestly felt bad that he had spent so much time organizing this, and then during the actual event, he played MC, making sure we were on schedule and at the right place at the right time. Around the same time, I met Jocelyn. She loved planning things exactly like my bachelor party for her friends on an average weekend. She would coordinate and reserve some vendors and pull together a group of 20 to 30 people to just do fun activities like camping, roller skating, or other events. I reflected and thought it would have been great for Joe if he had a Jocelyn to even help him plan my bachelor party. As I looked around, I began to see more and more opportunities for this type of service. Friends who had to plan 30th birthday parties for significant others, friends planning a bachelor or bachelorette party for the groom or bride of a wedding they were standing up in. My idea was born. The goal of off-the-shelf parties is really to allow people to enjoy fun, organized, small events that they do not have to plan themselves. Off-the-shelf parties is able to provide a quick, low-hassle method for planning a party. The semi-customizable events can reduce 20 to 30 hours down to as little as 1/2 hour. While the time commitment is reduced by 95%, the monetary impact is no greater than 10% more than what they would have paid had they planned the entire event themselves. The value in this service is clear for the customers. They get the planned party they are looking for with little to no effort by them, as well as little to no cost to them. Sure, some people will insist on planning the event themselves, but they are not the target market of this service. This service provides an off-the-shelf party that appears to be run by the individual, but runs as smoothly as a professional event. The initial launch of this business would be in the greater Chicago, Illinois, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin areas. This is a pre-packaged, semi-customizable small event planning service. Customers will have the opportunity to select items from a list, like event venues, food vendors, and transportation methods, and the event will be booked and coordinated for them. Many young urbanites are at a stage in their life that requires them to plan parties for friends and loved ones, like a bachelor, bachelorette, or birthday party, and few of them have the know-how or time to do it themselves, or the money to hire someone else to plan the whole thing. Overall, the event planning industry had revenues over $6 billion in 2012, with projected annual growth of over 3% over the next 5 years. There is a minimal amount of market share required in the initial target markets in order for the business to break even in 3 years, and there are no major competitors in this industry currently. At first, my idea was to have a full, customizable event planning service, like a Jocelyn for hire. Unfortunately, as I did some research into the cost willingness of customers and the time involved into planning a fully customized event, I could not foresee a way this would work, and I understood why there was not a service that did this already. Yes, there were event planners that did this, but they were very expensive. And then there were large group events people could participate in, but these were completely open to the public. I wanted a private, custom event I could plan easily and for only a small fee. My market research showed the majority of customers would pay up to $100 for a service that would plan this type of event for them. Through interviews with people familiar with this market, eventually I came to the conclusion that the only way this would work with that budget and the time commitment was to offer semi-customizable parties. There would be a list of vendors for food, transportation, and entertainment, and people would be able to select the ones they wanted, or pick a fully pre-configured party, pay a small fee, and the event would be ready to go. This new twist on my original desire piqued even more people's interest. I interviewed several different types of people in my market research, from new graduates to new parents, middle-aged couples, and many more, all to figure out what market would be most interested in my service. I found that primarily males and females between the ages of 22 and 40 were interested in using this type of service for personal, adult special events. They all lived in or around a city like Seattle, Milwaukee, Chicago, Houston, and they all had incomes over $35,000 a year. This market group is social and enjoys going out, but is often too busy with work, family, or continuing education to plan a full event themselves. They could also be trying to keep something a secret, and instead of spending hours every week planning the event, they want something quick and discreet. Additionally, many people did not realize how involved planning an event like this was. This service is for someone like my friend Lenny, who is 28, an engineer who works 45 to 55 hours a week, makes good money, and needs to plan his friend's bachelor party. This is for Danny, who is 25, a teacher who works 2 jobs and wants to plan a party for her fiance, Patrick. First things first, I needed to determine what is going to separate this company from the competition. While there are no major players in the event planning industry, the main competition for this service will be individuals planning events themselves. Since there is no affordable service out there, people in my target market normally just buckle down and plan the whole thing on their own. Sometimes they find a friend or family member to help them. There were 3 key parts I had to establish. First, this service would not cost over $100 more than what a customer would pay if they planned the whole event themselves. Second, I have to find vendors that people will want to use. And third, I have to convince the market that this service is worth it. I have already established a method to keep costs for customers under $100. This is by creating strong partnerships with vendors. Through my market research with familiar parties in the industry, vendors are willing to cut other businesses a deal because they pay more reliably and there are no emotions involved in the transaction. The increased business these vendors will see from this service also is an incentive for them because the increased volume helps spread out their fixed costs. Due to these reduced prices, the customers will pay the same amount for each vendor they normally would have paid had they done the research on their own. They then will pay a small incremental fee, between $50 and $100 depending on the cost and complexity of their event. Next, there will be 2 employees at the outset of this company, one in Milwaukee, myself, and one in Chicago, Lauren. I am familiar with Milwaukee, including the event options, and Lauren has been involved in the event planning industry in Chicago in the past. Her expertise in Chicago and mine in Milwaukee, along with some mentors whom I'll discuss later, will ensure we are picking the vendors that will draw the most of our target market. The final challenge is to convince people this service is worth it. A big challenge with any new company. Again, this is where strong vendor partnerships can help get off-the-shelf parties started. These partnered vendors will direct people looking to plan events through the service. This lowers the vendor's time and risk while still maintaining the business they would normally receive. Additionally, customer service is a top priority for off-the-shelf parties. Without positive experiences from our customers, it is unlikely the business will survive. As a result, top-notch customer service will be part of the mission of off-the-shelf parties. Here's just one example of a possible event that a customer would be planning for a 30th birthday party for 12 people, to play whirly ball, eat some food, and have transportation to and from a few bars after. As you can see, the difference between the cost of planning the event themselves and going through off-the-shelf parties is only $50, but the work required is reduced significantly. The majority of the margin for off-the-shelf parties comes from the discounts vendors have agreed to. One potential risk you may see is the lack of anything proprietary in this business. There is no new technology or process that prevents others from copying it. While this is not available for a patent or copyright, the name and the logo of off-the-shelf parties will be trademarked. This business will create a strong brand with young adults in the target markets, as well as creating relationships with vendors. Part of creating strong partnerships with local vendors will reduce off-the-shelf parties' costs, as well as discourage competitors from entering this market. This is really what will separate off-the-shelf parties from future competitors and can be considered the core competency of the company. The first mover advantage off-the-shelf parties has to partner with vendors will be difficult for future competitors to replicate. Off-the-shelf parties will contract with popular vendors in the target market geographies and create a mutually beneficial partnership, which will discourage them from wanting to partner with any future competition. Off-the-shelf parties will bring business to the vendors as well as interfacing with the customers, while the vendors offer discounts to off-the-shelf parties. Also, off-the-shelf parties will advertise at the vendors through flyers and posters. Vendors will be encouraged to send customers that call them directly to plan an event to off-the-shelf parties to see if they are interested in planning a whole night. This will mean the people who are already interested in the vendors are being directed to this service. Part of creating the strong brand will be based on the performance of the service and the promotional activities that off-the-shelf parties will participate in. This includes having a presence in the vendor locations that have partnered with off-the-shelf parties, as well as a strong social media campaign. Promotional videos and pictures from past events will be available online. Advertising will also be done at local colleges for fraternities, sororities, and other groups to host their parties through this service at a discount. This will build the brand while exposing the service to the next generation of customers. I've done extensive research on the target markets for the initial launch, and according to IBIS World, the spending in this industry is proportional to the population. In the Chicago and Milwaukee area, this equates to approximately $81 million for parties and events. I am assuming the capability to acquire 1.2% of the target market in the first year, with growth to eventually reach 3.5%. This equates to only 0.7% of the total spending in the industry. Ultimately, this equates to about 160 events in the first full year and 550 events in year 5, with an average cost per event equaling $1,000. Each event would only need between 1 to 2 participants to plan another event in the future for off-the-shelf parties to grow at this rate. This is a very conservative estimate of the potential of this company, given most people in the target market participate in these types of events 2 to 4 times a year according to my market research. With this conservative estimate, it is approximated that the break-even point will occur at the very end of 2017. This is the projected break-even timeline. By 2017, people will be aware of the service and word of mouth will have spread enough that it will be recognized as valuable. This loan will help provide the necessary capital required to jumpstart this business and hold it over until it has gained enough traction to support itself. Here's the projected income statement through 2019. By the year 2017, salaries for the employees will have increased and the revenues generated and cash flow will be invested into expansion into offices in Seattle and San Francisco. This is a conservative projection based on less than a 5% of market share in this industry for the target markets, not the whole market area served. I want to make this distinction that many of the projections are for just a sliver of the target market revenues. While these are the forecast numbers, it is possible for demand to be higher. As you can see, the first profitable year is 2016, with profits growing into 2019. Next, I have provided the cash flow statement for this venture. As you can see, once the loan is paid off, the cash flows of the company become much stronger. The loan off-the-shelf parties is looking for is $30,000 to be paid back in a 5-year period. Through initial contact with the bank, they indicated these rates to be between 5.1 and 5.5% if approved. This money would be going toward primarily the marketing, advertising, and other startup costs required in the first year, like licensing, an attorney, and an accountant, in order to get awareness out to the public, as well as ensure the service is ready to go when a customer shows interest. The CEO will also be investing $10,000 in order to get this company started. The management of off-the-shelf parties will be led by myself as the CEO. I have an engineering and engineering management background, with my roles always being customer-facing and where commercial sensitivity is critical. I have always been interfacing with external customers where it is important to build a strong relationship for return business. This experience will be helpful in meeting with vendors and building relationships. While my background will be helpful in the launch of this business, there also will be an advisory board that off-the-shelf parties will maintain in order to assist with business strategy and company direction. This board will be made up of 3 people. The first is a small business owner in the Chicagoland area for over 25 years. He has an MBA and will primarily be used for decisions related to running a small business. The second board member has been in the event planning industry for over 7 years. She also has an MBA. Her input will be valuable when it comes time to decisions related to the direction of the industry and strategy within the event planning industry. The last board member has been both an event planner and had a role in advertising. Her experience in the Chicago and Milwaukee areas will be invaluable when it comes time to meet with vendors, as well as creating a unified marketing strategy. Overall, off-the-shelf parties is in a great position to take advantage of a gap in the service offering. Young urbanites who are working do not necessarily have the time or know-how in planning a special event, but often they are expected to or want to for their loved ones. Off-the-shelf parties has all of the components required of a new small business that has the opportunity to be extremely popular and profitable. With a low upfront capital requirement, this business is filling a need, and I've yet to find this type of service recreated. People want this type of service, and in my market research, several people have shown an interest and willingness in being one of my first customers. This business will be profitable, and all it needs is the $30,000 loan I am requesting to get started. Thank you.